And on that note, I want to welcome everybody to the Sunday night special of The World According to Ben Stein. Today is August 15th, 2021, a day that will live in infamy. We are joined tonight by managing editor of American Greatness, Ben Boychuk, and of course, America's humble servant and America's professor and teacher, Ben Stein. If I sound a little somber, it's because I am Ben Stein. Watching the scenes at the airport in Afghanistan, thinking about what the women in that country and the daughters and the people are facing right now, as well as the way America looks right now, Ben. I don't know what else to say.
This is, I think, the blackest day in American foreign policy, perhaps ever, but certainly since Saigon. And I don't think it's like Saigon, because in Saigon, we fought like hell to get our people out. And the Vietnamese fought like hell up to the last man to get their people out. It was a Democrat Congress that kept us from going back there in large numbers and with our superb naval aviators to stop the Vietnamese communists and the North Vietnamese from seizing Saigon. That was the Democrats in Congress. They vetoed it. Ford wanted to do it. The closest I would come to it is Pearl Harbor, when President Roosevelt had warning after warning after warning that something was going on. Couldn't do a damn thing about it. Other than that, he was a great man, of course, there's no doubt about it. But this is a black day for America and for free and decent people. How anyone in the world will be able to trust America after today, I do not know.
I don't know either. And I think that, there's going to be a lot of blame to go around. If there is one possible long-term silver lining in this, it would be that the American people might be a little more skeptical about committing hundreds of thousands of men and women and upwards of $1 trillion to a foreign adventure that has ended in such disgrace.
Well, that would be true were it not for the fact that nothing quite like this has ever happened before.
Right.
I mean, I would agree with you. In general, we know it's a bad idea to go in with 1,000 men into Afghanistan, a very large country with a very well-armed, highly disciplined, highly motivated force against you. That's really a bad idea. But America has gone into foreign wars vastly greater than this, immensely, incomprehensibly greater than this, and won. And that war could have been won. One of our friends from a panel a couple of days ago, just very recently, said something along the lines of, you just can't win in Afghanistan. A country can't be conquered. Really? Somebody just conquered it. So it can be conquered.
That's actually a brilliant point.
So it could have been done. Believe me, if Erwin Rommel were in charge of it, he would have conquered it.
By the way, just for the record, we've already had two prime ministers, Ben Boychuk, since I last checked, that are blaming the United States. That's Boris Johnson and Trudeau.
Well, also the guy from Australia, Mr. I think his name is Morrison.
Yeah. So Ben Boychuk, can you just give us the numbers of how much money we've?
Sure. So in the course of 20 years, since just a few days after the 9/11 attacks in 2001, the United States has spent approximately, depending on whose numbers you believe, approximately somewhere between 778 billion and 822 billion. That's just in military expenditures. The U.S. Agency for International Development put in another roughly 50 billion on reconstruction projects.
And Stein, that's $1 trillion.
Pretty about $1 trillion. It's interesting. It's way above the numbers I've been seeing. But let's just, let's face it. The numbers I've been seeing are about 150 billion. But you know what? Even that's a lot. If they spent 150 billion on police in Detroit or in Chicago, right, we'd have a much better America.
Well, I mean, I wanted to point out that, between 2010 and 2012, when we had more than 100,000 troops in the country, we were spending around 100 billion a year during that time. And in more recent years, those numbers have necessarily gone way down as we've, drawn down the number of troops we've had in the country.
Well,
So,
you could just simply say incalculably too much. That's the short answer. And I would like to go and give a pat on the back to some anonymous Pentagon spokesman who said, you can't buy willpower. We spent a fortune. We were literally pushing bales of $100 bills and 20s out of helicopters. Literally, not figuratively, literally doing that. Didn't help. We had allies who did not want to fight, who sometimes wanted to fight, and then their friends killed them. It was a very, very bad situation. We still could have won. Look, we told, and I think Trump made this deal, so I feel bad about saying it. We told the Taliban, you go up to such and such a line, don't go any further, and we will not use air power against you. Air power would have stopped them cold. A whole bunch of helicopter gunships can stop anything. They could have stopped the Wehrmacht.
yeah, it seems to me that we left the Afghan army with some of the most sophisticated firepower on the planet.
Yes.
But without the mechanics to keep the helicopters operating, without civilian contractors to help them with other support, it seems like things fell apart pretty quickly, and that all those billions of dollars in guns and ammo and vehicles and helicopters amounted to nothing.
A friend of mine said to me today, where did the Taliban get the ammunition? They stole it from us. That's where they got it.
And
They stole it. And we yes, a very bad situation, very bad allies to have. Even so, as I said, it could have been done. There's such a thing in Afghanistan as the Northern Alliance. I'm sure, Ben, you, as a very, very well-informed human being, know about it. The Northern Alliance has always been anti-Taliban. They were our main allies when we came into the country. They fought very wonderfully with us, alongside of us. And I think they're still there. And I think they could still be pumped up, at least to some extent, although it's going to be very difficult now. But there's almost impossible, but it's conceivable. But look, we should have seen this coming. The Taliban were walking down the road. Nobody was stopping them. Nobody was even shooting at them.
And where is Joe Biden? He's in Camp David, doing absolutely nothing, Ben.
Not even answering the phone. And the White House doesn't even answer the phone.
And I said this to you pretty much, or the day he got in, our foreign policy would change because everybody knew that it was a joke. He's a joke, that this administration.
I don't think he is a joke, Judah. I love you and I trust you and I am impressed by you constantly, endlessly, more or less all the time. But I think he's worse than a joke. I think he is an actual subversive. I think he is, no one could be that stupid. I don't think anyone could be that stupid. It has to be in some kind of subversion. And I will tell you something, Ben.
Which is frightening.
I forget whether you're a lawyer in addition to your other credentials. No. Well, no. As a lawyer, I will tell you that at law, you are held to intend the natural and inevitable consequences of your actions. So the natural and inevitable consequences of withdrawing our forces in the face of an onrushing, growing, well-armed foe was defeat. So it's so foreseeable, such a natural consequence that it might as well have been intended. And I think in that case, it probably was intended. I don't think it was, I think as far as the history, the verdict of history is concerned, it was intended.
It would be interesting. It would be kind of an interesting counterfactual to think about how this would have played out if Donald Trump were in the Oval Office right now.
I think we know what he would have done if he had had enough power in the Congress. Even if he hadn't enough power in the Congress, he would have sent over those helicopter gunships. I mean, the American helicopter gunship is an incredible, unbelievable weapon. We have the biggest and best Air Force in the world by far. And we could have, if not stopped them and made them cry uncle, at least certainly slowed them down enough to get our people and our friends out of there. To just open the door and say, come on in and kill us all. That's insane.
I mean, it's you're right. It's criminal.
It's criminal.
And here's my question to you. Of the roughly 260 members of Republican members of the House, every single one of them.
No, there aren't that many. There aren't that many.
Well, we have about 214 in the Congress.
No. Because the whole Congress is 435. So, and we have less than half.
I was referring to both the Senate and the House, and the Senate and the Congress. And I meant to say the Congress. Of the roughly 260 members, they should all be calling for Biden to resign.
Absolutely.
And they should start impeachment trials.
Absolutely.
And they should start cognition tests.
Absolutely. Demand cognition tests. Demand cognition tests. And I say demand a background check of his top foreign policy and defense advisors. See how many of them are on the Russian payroll. A hell of a lot, I'm guessing.
So Ben Boychuk brought this up the other night, and he brought up Saigon, and somebody in the chat just brought up Saigon. Ben, you're saying this is worse than Saigon. Can you briefly tell people what Saigon looked like?
Well, the U.S. was losing the war somewhat, and quite clearly, by the end of Nixon's time in office. But Nixon had made it clear to the communists, if you go beyond this line that we have agreed to through negotiations with Henry Kissinger, who's still alive, boy, I'd love to hear what he's thinking, we're going to bomb the hell out of you. The Vietnamese communists went beyond the line, and we bombed the hell out of them. We bombed them like crazy motherfuckers. And so they stopped. Right. Then Nixon was kicked out of office. Talk about subversion. And the new president was for it. And he also said, I'm going to bomb you if you go beyond this line. But the Democrat Congress passed a law forbidding him from doing that. So the Democrats have been bent on subversion all along. Even so, the U.S. and the South Vietnamese Army, and South Vietnamese Army has some magnificent soldiers, not like our best soldiers, but damn good soldiers. They fought and fought, and they lost, but they went down fighting. These guys just walked away. They just walked away.
And in some cases defected to the Taliban.
Often defected to the Taliban and turned over their arms to the Taliban. And as Judah was saying, I think possibly before the show started being on the air, there are going to be so many women raped in Afghanistan. There are going to be so many men killed on TV in Afghanistan. How can we have allowed this to happen to people whom we beg to trust us? Right. How can we do that? How can we wake up in the morning and look ourselves in the mirror and know that we sent these people to their deaths? Ben Boychuk and you, Judah, my dear friend, you know I often go to Arlington National Cemetery. When I think of the gravestones I've seen of the boys who were killed there in Afghanistan, I think Biden might as well have just gone over to Arlington and spat on those graves.
It's, I have a somewhat different view on this, Ben, only insofar as I think that, Americans after 9/11, and I remember it vividly, Americans after 9/11 wanted to punish the people who were responsible for it. And so it made sense. People were willing to back the idea of sending troops to Afghanistan to hunt down Al-Qaeda, to hunt down Osama bin Laden, and to
turned out to be in Pakistan.
Yes, well, that's right. And by the way, Pakistan has paid zero price, as far as I can tell. Zero price for any of this.
Yeah.
But Americans were willing to commit troops to Afghanistan to kick the hell out of the Taliban at the time and to hunt down and capture or kill bin Laden and the rest of Al-Qaeda. They were not necessarily down for the idea of turning Afghanistan, which is not even really a nation state. It's a bunch of provinces and tribes, kind of, geographically enclosed, but they were not necessarily keen on the idea of trying to make Afghanistan into a functioning democracy, or to do any of the other wonderful things that enjoy the sort of liberties that we enjoy. That's not something that I think a lot of people necessarily cared about. It's going to be a horrible thing, certainly, to have pictures again of women being executed in soccer stadiums. But at the same time, if our goal was to get justice for 9/11, then we should have done that and gotten the hell out.
We didn't have any idea, I think, that things would turn around so quickly. We kept being told, so one reads in the newspaper, by our army people and our other armed forces people, that they had the situation in hand. That turned out to be completely untrue.
Yeah.
We've been misled by our armed forces leaders all along. But I agree with you entirely. I think, of course, obviously, if someone had said it's going to end like this, we would have all said, well, then let's not begin it in the first
Right.
place. But,
Right.
but nobody knew it was going to end like this. Nobody, even a week ago, even 2 days ago,
Right.
no one thought it was going to end like this. Even 1 day ago, no one thought it was going to end like this. No one thought that the Biden administration could possibly be so cruel to the men and women of Afghanistan who are on our side, or even to any Afghan. They're all going to now live under a cruel dictatorship of terror. They're all going to live that way. And how we could have been that cruel to them, I do not understand. I agreed entirely your part about trying to build a nation state, but we asked these people to trust us. They trust us with their lives. We kicked them in the teeth.
There are still Americans there. There are American civilians.
There are lots of Americans there.
Yeah,
there are hundreds of American civilians.
American civilians who
of them
have no way of getting out right now.
I know.
And this is when I got to say, this is when I wish there was a GoFundMe for Blackwater, because
they have plenty of money.
Yeah, I would say.
Don't worry, Judah.
I know, but they do things they are a for-profit organization. I was simply saying to go in and help those people out. And it's also, this is when I look at America, Ben, and I look at these jackass woke people that, these women, these people that complain they're not making enough money. They're not making the equal pay of men in movies. They're not, and all the gripes that every jackass has. And they're not looking to what's going on over there and what's about to go on over there. We're on the night.
They don't give a shit. They don't give a shit. They're rich. They're in Homey Hills. They're in my neighbors in Malibu, although I live in a very modest part of Malibu. They're my neighbors in Beverly Hills. They don't give a shit about ordinary people. They couldn't care less. And as for the wokeness people, they really don't care. That's one of the great scams of all time. That's an incredible scam. It's a super scam.
My other hope here too is that just as Donald Trump got a rude awakening very early on in his term, that the generals that he so loved were not anything like the people he thought they were.
They're not. You're so right.
Right. My hope is that normal Americans and really conservative voters have their eyes opened by all of this, that the people who run the Pentagon, the people who are the top brass in the military are buffoons and liars.
Wait a minute. I can't let that go because my father-in-law was a high brass in the White House. And
I'm not talking about then. I'm talking about now.
The Pentagon. Okay, God bless you.
I'm talking about now.
Yeah. I think now you're totally right. You know what is amazing to me, Ben and Judah? We now have a Pentagon that has high officers, generals, working on diversity training,
right?
LGBTQ sensitivity training, and fuck them. They're supposed to win wars. The purpose of armies is to fight and win wars. A very famous person said that. I won't say who, but a very, very, very famous person said that. The purpose of an army is to fight and win a war. It's not to work for diversity. It's not to work for wokeness. It's to fight and win wars.
Mark Milley.
One of them
Mark,
said what he said. I'm not your average white person. Is that one of them said that a day or two ago?
I was going to say Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff a few months ago, said that he wanted to understand white rage as a white person. I think he's going to understand white rage very, very soon.
And Ben, you brought up, I hope so. And for more than conservatives, Ben Boychuk and Ben Stein, independents really have to be looking at what at the absolute stupidity of this person that was propped up, literally propped up, and have to be asking themselves, would I have rather had what we had, which was a lot of greatness, to this absolute humiliation that we're suffering.
Oh, well, of course, but I don't know for sure about this. I'll tell you two experiences I had quite recently. One, a very close family member whom I've mentioned on this show many times. Yesterday, I said to her, saying to her that when I was a young man, very young man, some neighbors had brought me to a meeting of the John Birch Society, and probably only Ben Boychuk knows what that is. I bet you've heard of it. Very.
I actually made a joke to Ben Boychuk the other night. He said,
very conservative group, and I said to this woman, very close, I said, I don't know if there even is a John Birch Society anymore, and she said, there is. It's called the Republican Party, and I said, I said to her, well, I won't say what I said to her because that would destroy her anonymity. And then this very same night, I got a letter from a guy who had been my roommate in college, one of the absolutely most feckless, incompetent people in the world, saying that the Republican Party was a death cult. And I thought to myself, now this guy is a graduate of Columbia. He should know a little bit of history, should not be able to read the newspaper. But of course, then I thought, well, the newspapers preach that. We have got America now where the propaganda of the extreme left, the propaganda of what are in essence Bolsheviks, has taken over very large part of the mind of the country.
We're 7 months in to an essentially a fake regime. And Ben Stein, like I said before, Republicans,
they should be out in front of, they should be demonstrating in front of the White House tonight. They should be marching in front of the White House on Pennsylvania Avenue tonight saying, please, for God's sake, don't let these people be killed. But it's too late. They are going to be killed.
And so will probably quite a few Americans and quite a few Canadians and quite a few Australians and quite a few of a lot of different people. And I think, and I'll go both of you, you know what often gets lost is the people in the middle, the people. Everybody always thinks, oh, it's people just fighting. It's like everybody is fighting everybody. No, most of the people are civilians. Most of the people within the borders of fighting, Ben Stein, no matter where you are innocent freaking civilians.
And that's the problem. We cannot, if the Taliban, as they will, start murdering people by the hundreds and then by the thousands, we can't just carpet bomb Kabul or Herat or Kandahar like we could have carpet bombed Berlin or Dusseldorf or Emden, because most of those people, they're like us perfectly fine. So what do we do? There's nothing we can do. It's too late. It's too late. And why is it that the media is not screaming bloody murder? Because the media is in on the gag, and it's a gag. It's a suicide gag.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about that.
It's just too horrible to think about. It reminds me a lot of 9/11 in the sense that we were caught totally napping and totally unprepared for something that we should have seen. But this was coming right down the road. It couldn't. I mean, it was like a car coming towards us with its headlights on 5 miles away, and we couldn't get out of its way.
We couldn't send in, Ben. I mean, think about it like this. I mean, think of it. We're all sort of common sense. We're talking about, obviously, we were ill prepared to defend anything else, but we could have defended the airport. We could have defended the embassy at any moment's notice. Within 24 hours, we could have had 30,000 troops there.
Well,
And
I don't know about 30,000, but the 82nd Airborne is pledged to be able to be anywhere on the globe within 24 hours. And that's, I think, roughly 2,000. Okay, even that would have made a difference, a big difference.
And Ben Boychuk, I like Ben said, the suicide, yeah, I don't know what to say to that. I mean, it's really frightening what we're
It's really
allowing to
frightening.
happen.
How can any country trust us anymore? And you know what? Biden doesn't give a goddamn if they trust us anymore. Biden doesn't know what day it is. He just knows what his Soviet handlers are telling him to know.
It makes me wonder. I mean, it's probably pretty easy to guess what the Chinese are thinking right now about Taiwan.
You bet.
And the U.S. commitment or lack thereof.
But the Taiwanese will fight. The Taiwanese are incredibly brave, extremely well armed. They're an amazing people, really, really an incredible people. And of course, they're thinking about that, and they're thinking about those islands in the South China Sea and Spratly Island and so forth. Of course, they're thinking about that. And I think Russia is thinking about the Baltic states, and they're thinking about, why can't we have the rest of Georgia? Why can't we have the rest? I mean, we took the Crimea. Why not take the rest of the area? Why not take it all? We're not going to do anything.
And somebody did bring up in the chat that CNN did say today, where the hell is Joe Biden? Which is shocking in itself. But we used to disagree, but be semi-normal. There are people in the Senate, in the Democrat side, that have been there for the better part of 40 years, that have been through Saigon, that have been through all these different things. And you'd think at a moment like this, for one moment like this, put away partisanship. I get it.
I don't think there are any who've been through Saigon. I don't think there are any who've been through there that long.
Nancy Pelosi's been in office, I believe, close to 50 years.
That wouldn't quite do it.
Okay, but I'm saying they've been around long enough. And
so of course she's long. She's been around long enough.
And
she's not acting out of ignorance, Judah. She's acting out of malice. She's an angry, nasty person.
You know what, Ben? Then they're all acting out of malice, and Ben Stein and Ben Boychuk, and we've truly lost it, Ben Boychuk.
Yeah,
we're in a lot of trouble. We're in a lot of trouble.
We're in a big heap load of trouble, and you know, I am very concerned that this just sends a signal not only to our enemies, but also to somebody who would want to try to pull off another 9/11 type attack. While our leaders and our military are looking at American citizens as potential domestic enemies, and our priorities are just completely out of whack. This is not something that you would expect from a global superpower. This is something you would expect from a second-rate power at best.
Well, this is a country that has been thoroughly infiltrated by Marxism, and a phrase I just heard on the radio tonight, which I actually like very much, wokeism. And in the process of attempting to improve racial feelings among Blacks, we have turned the country inside out and done terrible things to it and not helped the Blacks in the process. So the Blacks are just as bad off as they were, and now we're all getting worse off. So it's just been a situation where racism, a fake racism, has been used as a tool to dig up and then bury America.
The question is, Ben Boychuk, I think you have to run. If you can hang out for a couple more minutes. The question is, what's next? Because Ben Boychuk just brought it up, Ben Stein, and he brought up every enemy of our country tonight, home and abroad, must be thinking to themselves, they're fair. So
go ahead.
No, I'm done. You know where I'm going with it.
No, I think that was for you, Ben Stein.
Ben Boychuk and Judah Friedman. On my phone tonight, there was a picture of Mr. Obama's party for himself. Dressed, I've never seen people so sumptuously dressed. And this is what he's doing in the midst of a national collapse. He's basically saying way worse than let them eat cake. He set this whole thing in motion, disgrace to humanity, and I hope he I just can't. Well, there's nothing. He's too angry and stupid and too much of a liar to have any idea of what he's done. So nothing bad will happen, and he'll continue to be a hero to the leftists, and that's that.
Do you think? I mean, 7 months in, Ben Stein.
I
We're
know.
seven.
Yeah, I passed a gasoline station on my way back from the eye doctor's. Gasoline, $6.20 a gallon, self-serve.
Where was this?
At the corner of Beverly Drive, Beverly Drive and La Cienega.
Holy moly!
And the
And
problem.
then I went on to my gas station in my neighborhood in Beverly Hills, which is usually even more expensive. It was only $5.15.
It's no, I mean, we're at a tipping point, Ben, and I'm not the economist here, but you being the economist and inflation, the reports that inflation is outpassing hourly wages.
Oh, yeah, by far. Yeah, by far. That's always true of inflation.
But how can we?
True of inflation.
So how could we sustain? What I mean, what is
We're
next?
not going to sustain. People are going to get to be worse off, and it's all started with the attack on the oil industry. There was no reason for that. We didn't need an attack on the oil industry. Oil is not a bad thing. Natural gas is not a bad thing. The planet is not dying because of Americans driving cars. The planet, it's very questionable whether the planet is dying at all. I wouldn't even put 1 penny's worth of trust in what a group of environmentalists says. But even so, what America burns up in the way of fossil fuels is trivial, not even worth thinking about compared with what China burns. And we're not making them do anything.
Right.
Ben Boychuk,
They're building more coal plants.
I know they build a new coal-fired plant every few days.
Yeah, that's right.
No, I mean, we're as to say what you said in the beginning, Ben, we're fucked. And
we're in very, very, very real trouble. And as I said to my wonderful caregiver, Jeff, well, we'll have a really good dinner tonight, and then we'll watch reruns of Perry Mason, and I can't do anything about it. I mean, I'm not going to pick up the gun. I'm not going to pick up the gun. I will not turn to violence ever. I'm not going to pick up the gun. I hope no one I know picks up the gun, but I hope we have learned something.
Do you, Ben Boychuk, as we're closing, do you think we've learned anything?
The cliche of every editorial writer everywhere is one thing is certain: it's too early to tell. I doubt it. I don't know. I don't know if we've learned anything. I just hope that more Americans after this are not woke, but rather awakened to the reality that their experts, their elites, their ruling class, not only does not have the best interests of the country in mind, they are idiots. And no, well,
Ben said it worse. They're not idiots. They're subversives.
Well, yeah, I mean, but they're subversive, but they're not as clever as they think. And they have a great deal of power, and they have a great deal of influence, and they have quite a lot of money, but they aren't as cunning as they think they are. And it may not take very much, but we can't bear very much, but it may not take very much for this whole thing to come down like a house of cards. And I don't know what that would look like, other than that it would be extremely bad for the country, extremely bad for regular people. And, I hope and I pray that there are people within the government and within, in states and local governments, and people who are patriots. And I know a great many patriots, but who have the sense and the ability to step up And, because these guys presume to have a right to rule, but they suck.
They're worse than, it's worse than that. This is treason as defined by the Constitution.
Well, it defines treason so people understand, because that word is often
Giving aid and comfort to the enemy in time of war.
that's perfectly said. And if
That's
any
in the Constitution.
yeah,
I didn't
and-
make that up. It's in the Constitution.
and if any Republican were smart and had enough guts tonight, they'd be
Yes, any Republican district attorney could be now bringing charges against Mr. Biden for treason.
Ben Boychuk, I know you have to run.
I have to run too.
Ben Stein has to run too. I want to thank everybody that came to this impromptu chat. Ben Stein called me today, and I've never heard him so somber. I've never heard him so angry. I've never heard him so distraught over our United States government. He said he wanted to do a show tonight. I said, of course. I want to thank everybody that's been in the chat, that joined us, that got our messages via benstein.substack.com, also on MeWe. And I really honored that you came here. We're going to be putting this episode up tonight so you could download it tomorrow. And I pray, Ben.
We have to pray.
I know some people say, "Oh, you fight, not pray." No, you have to pray too. You need to pray. And
I am not going to ever take up the gun, but
yeah.
I will end with this. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
We will see you Tuesday night. Let's pray for everybody around the world. Have a good night.